All right, guys, so we've got all of our parts basically laid out here. We've got our cover, we've got our hardware, our skid plate, and our gasket. Really simple. Before we get going on the bike, we're going to do some pre-assembly. Now, for what it's worth, just want to note, when I select my skid pad for most of these covers, I almost always go with the aluminum skid pad. Why? Because this actually sticks off the cover more and provides a little bit more protection. The only reason that I ever select the stainless steel one is there's a few covers here and there that the OEM cover is very, very close to the ground. And when that happens, you need as much ground clearance as possible. But most modern motorcycles, the covers don't drag all by themselves. So we use the aluminum skid plates because they definitely give themselves the most protection. So the assembly is really simple. All we do is we look on the backside. You've got these 3 holes here where there's a little bit of recessed screws in there. We take our screws, which have the O-rings here, which seal the cover right there. And basically, we just take these threads and coat them in our blue Loctite and thread them in. It's really a piece of cake. So we will literally take these things here and prep them really quick. When I cover these things, I actually literally coat the entire threads in blue Loctite because this acts as a secondary backup seal. The O-ring does a fantastic job, but you want to coat these threads in this blue Loctite. And I use some really good stuff here that's been real proven. And you want to make sure you have a fresh bottle of stuff whenever possible because that always makes sure that it works well. Loctite can go bad over time. And then we'll literally just take the skid pad, mount it up, take our 3 screws, and do a couple of turns by hand, get them going. We're at 1, 2, 3. And then we will thread them in with our trusty 3mm T-wrench here. And torque on these, this is only a 5mm bolt, so very, very light. You basically will seat the 3 of them down. Piece of cake here. All right. And after we get them totally tightened up, all right, we will give this Loctite plenty of time to cure, okay? Especially before I want to ride the bike or expose this thing to oil. So just take these things out, just snug them down tight, slung them down tight, and we are good to go. So our next step, once this is all cured, is we'll go over the motorcycle. We'll take the sensor off the stock bike, okay, pull that off, put the stock sensor right in here using the OEM bolts. We'll also attach those using blue Loctite. The rubber plug that goes right in here, that is self-sealing. You can, if you want to, put a little bit of silicone in that groove if you like, but without it dry, it does just fine. And then we'll take the gasket that is supplied with the kit as well and install that. Again, no need to put any sealant on these gaskets. These are really, really high quality gaskets and they will seal all by themselves. We'll just take them, drop them on there, and it will be good to go. So all in all, installation on this thing should probably take about 10 or 15 minutes outside of the time that it takes for the Loctite to dry, and you're good to go. All right, so here's our cover we'll be replacing. Piece of cake, we're just gonna pull off these 6 bolts. No need to drain the oil or anything because the oil level is below the bottom of this cover here. So you look what they got the oil level all the way down here, cover's way above that level, so no worries about it. There might be a little bit of drip out of there, so it's good to keep a rag on the table right below where you're gonna take this off. But outside of that, this should be totally ready to go and just come right off. So once again, we'll start just by taking these 6 bolts off here real quick. Piece of cake, I just use a little 8mm T-wrench, works fantastic. And we'll pull these bolts off here and this thing will pop right off. And inside this cover, the only thing we gotta pay attention to is inside this, there is a trigger, a little pickup that goes on the rotor behind here. So when we get this cover off, we will have to pull that trigger off this cover, and then we'll transfer that to the other cover we have when we reinstall it. So we'll just reuse all these brackets, these little brackets that hold the wires in place and stuff. They'll go right back in place when you are putting in your new Woodcraft cover, and they will be good to go. So once again, a little bit of rag beneath this thing will catch any oil that may drip out, but again, no need to drain the oil because the oil level is significantly below the level of this cover. And we'll usually take a little screwdriver and oftentimes we'll gently pry on the little pry tabs for the stock cover. That will help break it free. And there you go. Good to go. So when we get done with this, we just need to take this little sensor off this cover right here. We'll pull the stock gasket off, clean everything up, reinstall that, and the installation will go really quick. All right, so with the gasket removed, we've popped the little plug out, and then all we gotta do is take our little 4mm Allen wrench here, boom. We'll pop these both loose, and this will come right out. All right, so with our sensor fully out now, we'll reinstall it in the cover. So all we've got to do now is take it and line up these two little bolts right here. And step number one is going to be to pop this little plug into that square notch there. Should be a nice tight fit. The sensor's got some little recesses that pop right in there, and then we're going to take these bolts right here. OEM bolts going to get reused. We're going to recoat them, clean them off with some contact cleaner, recoat them with some blue Loctite, and we'll reinstall those. All right, so with our bolts now fully cleaned off and coated with some nice fresh Loctite, we'll just take those 4mm bolts right there, thread them back into their homes. Take our little 4mm Allen wrench and secure them down again nice and snug, and we will be good to go. Always tighten everything by hand at first. Make sure everything's down nice and snug, and then you go back and you can perform your final torque on both of these with a torque wrench. All right, last step before we get ready for our installation is to make sure we get some contact cleaner in here, get rid of any oil or residue that might be in this thing, and also you'll see there is gasket residue from the stock gasket all the way through here. So we'll quickly take a razor blade and we'll scrape that off. We'll pull these pins out here as we go and make sure we get a nice clean surface all the way around. I'll do a couple of laps with this thing, clean it up with contact cleaner, and then once this is 100% clean and ready to go, then we'll get the cover back on there. Okay, with our engine 100% clean and dry now, we'll simply reinstall our gasket, let it sit right there, and then we'll take our cover and line it back up again. With our cover now in place, all we gotta do is replace our 6 OEM bolts, get all the retaining wires back in place, and we are 100% good to go. And there you have it, a 100% installed, ready to go Woodcraft billet cover with the aluminum skid plate. In our opinion, absolutely the best protection you can get for your motorcycle, and it looks beautiful.